Okay, so I have another tutorial for you guys. Well, not tutorial, but sort of a review of a player, Mr. Rybread here, who is our Zerg player. He has asked me if I would take a look at his game against this Terran player, LaFleur. LaFleur? Anyways, whatever, I don't care what that name is. I'm just going to say right off the bat, this is another siege tank type of game. This is where players lost once again due to the fact that they were not able to handle siege tanks. Sadly, I'm not perfect at handling siege tanks either, so hopefully I can still give you some good advice, but it won't be the best. Using his extractor trick, of course, to get out that extra drone as he went for his overlord at 10 here. And he's going to go 14 pool into hatch. Basically what I'd like to say too is pretty much you can safely go 14 hatch the majority of the time and then get your pool right after. Really personal preference. It's not going to make that big of a difference at your level of play, but definitely don't feel afraid to get this now that there's basically no chance of Reapers and the fact that Hellions really suck against roaches. So either way, not going to complain too much, and nothing too fancy is happening. You're getting some scout going straight across his base. Of course, your drone can't go up. One thing I would have liked to have seen is your overlord. I would have liked to have brought it down this way a little bit to try and get some of this, but at the same time it might have got shot, so oh well. And then when your queen comes out, look at how many minerals you have. I actually think you should have done inject larva before this. That's up for debate. Some people will say use your creep tumors first, some will say use your inject larva, but with the amount of minerals that you need, I would have looked at that and said, okay, I'm going to use my inject larva because I have enough to spend that. Doing transfer here to make this one useful right away, I guess that's okay, but at the same time I look and say this one wasn't fully saturated, so it's not really going to make a huge world of difference because you do lose a little bit of travel time as those drones are running to this base. The other thing too is these two Zerglings you got here. I know you want to try and defend both bases. Leave them on your creep though. Just leave them on your creep. That's what I would suggest. Not going to really lose you the game though anyways. Getting out the fast roach, that's sort of the new thing. Okay, fine. Your macro's okay. You don't have horrible macro. It's pretty decent, so that's not really your big issue. Going into baneling nest. Now, I really wasn't paying attention to what you scouted, but really you didn't scout his army. Oh no, maybe you did. You did scout his army, so you saw quite a few marines, I guess. So okay then. So that's why you're going to banelings. Still, I really haven't seen too many people use baneling roach. I'm not quite sure, if that's very common or not, but I don't think it is. Now, one thing I'd like to see you doing, of course you're getting pretty high in the minerals, and that's because of a couple of reasons. One, your evo chamber's not done, so you can't get upgrades. Two, you're not building any new tech, and of course you have a lot of larvae just hanging around at both bases. What I really would like to see at this point is I'd like to see you using your speedlings because they're so fast. I'd like to see them breaking down these rocks, maybe a couple roaches. The reason why I'm saying your speedlings here is if your opponent ends up moving out, with your overlords placed all over the map, you will be able to move your speedlings back to this area before his army can engage you, whereas the roaches are a bit slower. So, I really would like to see you breaking this down. When you're playing Zerg, you really just want to be aggressive with making sure you're getting lots of bases. Anyways, we're going to continue on now. You've got a bit of an army here. Overlord placement, it's okay. Could be a little bit better. That one's going to get sniped off, the poor fella. But, overall, I'm playing okay up to this point in terms of macro. Now, this is where things go horribly wrong. Look at what's happening. You have not selected any of your units. Well, one, your supply block because he killed your overlord. That sucks. You should always build a couple extra Zerg. Always be well ahead because your overlords do get sniped. But anyways, look, see how some of these units are starting to run forward and the rest are hanging back. Okay, right away that's bad because the few units that run forward are going to get picked off real easily. You really want to move them back, have your whole army together. The other big problem is don't put your spine crawler here when you see the attack coming. You're not going to be able to put this up. It takes way too long to build. I would have just started a spine crawler back here or even on your top ramp, and that way I would be able to build before the army would get to it, and also you could always move it later if you need to. So really don't put that there, especially since you're sort of doing that panic mode. Don't put that there. Just put it somewhere. And of course, the real important thing is you have to move your army back. And this is why you're going to lose this battle and the game. You actually lose the game completely because of this right here. If we look at army, your army is smaller than his, but at the same time, you could have done a lot better if your army had been placed a lot better, and you would have been able to hold this off probably with your reinforcing units that are coming out. Because if we look at the production tab, of course, you've got 2 more roaches, 2 more lings coming out. And watch these units just get raped. Ouch. They didn't even kill a single marauder. And then you bring in... Ooh, that wasn't too great. Let's just back that up again and show you what you did wrong there. Okay. So the problem is, you still don't keep your whole army together. Especially once you select these Zerglings. Really, you want them to come in with your roaches. Don't send them in early. See, now they're just getting slaughtered and they have no backup from the roaches, and they're not going to take damage as the roaches take it. The other problem too is placement here. As Zerg players, constantly, other players, what they do is they try and not let a Zerg player surround them. Why? Because if a Zerg player gets a surround on you, you take a lot more damage, your units. It's a simple fact. Really what you should have been doing is you should have been withdrawing, pulling all of your units back here. You really want them to come into this open area where you can easily surround them and flank them. Right now, you can only attack from the front. You could sort of try and run around, but it's on a ramp. It's really going to be hard to do. So really you want him to come out here. You want to take your roaches and attack straight on, take most of your Zerglings, attack straight on, and take some of your Zerglings up, just click up here and then have them come in for the attack. So you can get a much better surround. And you're just throwing in like half of your army at a time or a quarter at a time, really not going to be effective. If you look at unit lost, we see huge difference, 800 units, and of course, didn't cancel that in time, and your queen's not going to do anything useful. Now your probes right here, at this point, I see the siege tank, I see, you know, his army here. I don't see you being able to save your probes by hiding them back here, especially with that siege tank. I don't know if he has siege mode or not if I was in your shoes, but I'm sort of going to assume he does, as the majority of players do like to get siege mode. So really, I'd either like to see those drones beelining it straight across here and trying to get a few away alive by this path, or I would like to see them coming in and just trying to pick off whatever units they can, because they're pretty much dead anyways. You might be able to save like 4 or 5 by going up here. And the other thing I want to note here too is if you had taken these rocks out earlier when you still had an army, you could be expanding right now because you know you're going to lose this. You could be saying, okay, I'm going to sort of turtle up a little bit, I'm going to throw down a couple spine crawlers, I'm going to let this one die, and I'm going to have a hatchery here, and that would have really helped. Or even throwing an in-base hatchery, but really you don't have the minerals to support it off one, so it would have been best if you could have thrown it down here and if you had broken those earlier. That's why I pointed that out. Now comes the slaughter. One thing I'd like to say is these rally points. I'd really like to see these rally points just clicked on the unit, so as soon as they spawn, they come out and they attack and try and kill that tank. And then have this army waiting right at the top of the ramp. Keep your eye on how close right now. See, just before they spawned in, you should have had your roaches here, so that as soon as, just before those spawned in, those Zerglings, you could have had your roaches come in at the exact same time, and you probably could have killed them right there, the army that he had. Instead, he killed a few of your Zerglings because siege tanks are just uber powered, and he also was able to weaken a couple of them, which really doesn't matter. But still, you really probably could have just killed them right there, and that would have kept you in the game without having to expand here like I had suggested. And of course, I do like the fact that you were trying to secure high ground right there. Very useful, but I don't like the fact that you ran away. And the other thing too is I'd love to see an overseer, whatever, overlord. I don't play Zerg too much. I'd love to see an overlord spotting somewhere so that you can keep tabs on when a siege tank is sieged or not, because you really want to have that information when you're playing against siege tanks. And of course, your army was bigger than his. You really should have pushed out before you got these reinforcements. That's another thing, it started off with you just didn't use your army efficiently because you only let a couple units come in at a time, and then of course you didn't have anywhere else to expand, and then the real nail in the coffin is just sitting in your base and letting that siege tank come in. And really there's not enough marines to justify however many banelings you're warping in. There's a ton of banelings, and really if you'd seen what was left of his army, and it was like 6 marines in a tank, and I don't know. These siege tanks are so strong. I really hate the fact that you didn't kill this off either. I wish you had just kept going. You only had 3 roaches left anyways. You might as well finish that off and just lost those roaches. I think it would have been a lot bigger advantage than letting the siege tank live. And again, now because you don't have vision, you're letting... Oh, you actually caught his siege tank before it sieged, so I'm very impressed with that. Very good thing that you're able to do. And now you got to back out because he's got high ground sight and he's got those tank siege down there. But yeah, it's very important. You really want to try and be catching these siege tanks off guard and engaging them when they... Okay, right now, your roaches should be right here firing away. He does not have high ground advantage, so that's another thing. So really with your game, I'm not going to say that you really have any major macro problems, especially in your league. You don't have any at all. It's really just about microing your units and using them. There's a ton of things you could have done better with your army, just little things, but, you know, you were in too far of a hole to come back from. And you really weren't aggressive enough at keeping his siege tanks from getting this stranglehold on you right here. And of course, a huge thing would have been is if you had gone for Spire Tech, he would be paying for it right now, because if you notice, he's been doing Marauders and tanks because he knows you don't have any air. He hasn't been getting Marines, just a couple left over, and this funny guy, which isn't his. But anyways, those things are awesome. Yeah, if you had Mutas right now, you would have been raping him because he just does not have many Marines out, and if you switch to Marines, you have your Baneling's nest, or even just if you had Speedlings and Roaches, that would have been enough to deal with if you'd gone a lot of Marines, if you had gone up. So, game's over, and hopefully this helps you for your next game. Just really think about those things, about how your army is engaging, and making sure that you're using your army in a way that's as efficient as possible. Especially against these siege tanks, you have to be very careful. I've lost way too many games because of improperly engaging siege tanks or allowing them up to the front of my base like this. So I know what you're going through, and I know how annoying it is to deal with, and I myself am still looking for the ultimate solution on how to fight off siege tanks with whatever race you're choosing to use. So, valiant effort, but he will have reinforcements come in and blow you to smithereens anyways.